Joining us from the nation's capital is United States Senator Joe Manchin. Senator, it is always good to see you. Thank you very much for taking a few minutes to join us here on Connect to Congress.
Good being with you, Kenny.
Appreciate it. I don't want to start with a question, because I know you get asked this question a lot. So let me lay out a scenario and you tell me if I'm right. You can run for Senate in 2024 as a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. You can run for president in 2024 as a Democrat, Republican, or third party, or you can do neither, and you can enjoy the boat and the grandkids. Have I set up the scenario correctly?
I think you got it absolutely dead on. Correct.
Good deal. And I'm not going to ask you about a decision because I know you've made the statement you're not going to make a decision for several months, but I do want to ask you...
I'll do it at the end of the year.
At the end of the year. I do want to ask you about the announcement of the president that he's running for another term, and the announcement we're expecting to hear from Governor Justice that he's going to jump into the Senate race. Your announcement to those two decisions.
Well, my announcement is I'm going to put my head down and do all the work I can here to help the state of West Virginia. I'm working hard on the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I'm working hard on permitting so we can build more things and get more opportunities in West Virginia. You know, with what we've been able to pass and the bills that I have sponsored and written, the energy parts of these bills are bringing a lot of opportunities to West Virginia. I want to make sure that we fulfill that, Kenny. So I've got my work cut out for me this year, and I'll make a decision on my politics, and I won't get involved in anybody else's politics until the end of the year.
Sorry, I misspoke. I said announcement, I meant response, but you responded anyway because you're a pro. I appreciate it. Let me ask you some questions about the work that you have to do in front of you. You mentioned this week that the Inflation Reduction Act has not gone exactly as you anticipated, and there is a chance that you would fight against it if it's not implemented correctly. Can you go into that and explain your thought process?
Sure. Yeah, well, the bill was definitely written for one purpose. The only reason I got involved and came back after I killed the BBB, which was a tremendous overreach, would have put us in a horrible financial situation in our country and made people more dependent on government. I've always said this: government should be your partner, not your provider, and we should work together to help those who need help the most. But with that being said, Kenny, then they've taken this piece of legislation, which I intended it, and still it's going to be that, energy security. We're going to produce more oil, gas, and coal, and use it cleaner than anywhere in the world. That basically is changing where it's being used now, the dirtier parts of the world that's producing the fossil industry. So we can do more for ourselves, we can help our allies, and we can also invest in the new clean technology of the future. They're basically liberalizing people that can participate in EV tax credits and all of the renewable stuff that they would like to promote. And I've said this: the bill you won and didn't pass, the bill that we passed is a balanced bill, and you're not going to be able to do anything on the renewable side unless you're doing on fossil also, so we have the horsepower to run our country. Now with that, they're just basically blowing through the budget. We had $384 billion put aside for over 10 years, which we basically showed how we would pay for that. Well, now I'm seeing that the new estimates from this Congressional Budget Office is saying just that portion is $570 billion. So I've got to stop that. I told them I would repeal my own bill to stop them from overspending and basically just making a charade out of it.
Senator, how would you characterize how you were dealt with on the Inflation Reduction Act? Is it fair to say that, or do you feel like you were betrayed or lied to, or do you just think it's the party's inertia that is swinging much more sharply to renewables and electric vehicles and things like that than they communicated with you?
Well, the thing of it is that we have X amount of dollars. This is a $689 billion bill. And we raised that money by charging 15% minimum tax for corporations who weren't paying anything. I thought that was fair. Everyone should pay something for this great country. And with that, we invested that money. We didn't raise $1 trillion. We didn't have the luxury of going over 300 or 400. We'd have to find other ways of paying for it. So if that's their intent, is to mislead the public and basically debt finance when they run out of money, I'm not partaking of that. I called them out on the BBB, what they were doing. It's bait and switch. I called them out on ARP and all these other. So I'm not going to do that to the American public or the people in West Virginia. If I tell you that we're going to raise this amount of money, this is how we're paying for it, and we'll have 10 years to implement these plans. and then they go ahead and bust through it in 2, 3, or 4, or 5 years, then that's fine. If that's what they want to do, then that's when it should stop. And if you want to see if the public would support more investments in what you want to do, then it goes back through the process. That's not what we're doing here, or what they're trying to do. So yes, they lied, they misled, they're playing games that aren't fair to the American public. And someone says, well, why did you do it? We have a chance to have energy security. We have a war going on where Russia has basically, Kenny, used energy as a weapon. And we have geopolitical unrest with China, Russia, Iran, and you have all these rogue nations here that don't have our same values. You've got to be energy secured and energy independent if you want to remain the superpower of the world. That's what I care about. And we can also invest in new technologies that will help us have a cleaner environment. I'm concerned about that too. But we can use the fossil fuels we have right now in a much cleaner fashion. I've always said, you can't eliminate your way to a cleaner environment, but you can definitely innovate your way to a cleaner environment and have the rest of the world follow with you.
You've been talking about the national debt and the deficit for a long time. We're running into the debt ceiling again, possibly this summer. The House has made some movements on that and wants to talk with the president. So far, that's not happened. Your thoughts about where we stand today on this debate and as we move into the summer?
First of all, Kenny, we're not going to default on the debt. But the longer that we wait to basically tackle this and get it behind us, and say we're going to pay the bills that we've incurred, the quicker we can move on to more constructive things that we can do till we get our financial house in order. But to say that you're not going to talk or negotiate, we've always talked and negotiated. When you have a divided Congress, that's the whole thing. Negotiation, collaboration, you talk and you work out your differences. And that's what we're going to do here. I'm anxiously awaiting whatever the House sends us to see the good parts that we can work with, get our financial house in order. There's a part of the permitting process in there that we can extract that and work on a permitting bill too. So there's an awful lot of good things. And for anyone to say, it's got to be cleaned, I'm not even going to talk to you, that is not the purpose of us being here. The purpose of us being here is finding out what we can agree, be able to, in a civil way, disagree, but be able to work out our problems. And you can't work out your problems if we won't talk to each other. So I'm open. I want to talk to everybody. I want to find out how we can make our financial house more secured and do what needs to be done for the American public and for the state of West Virginia.
You recently introduced a bill about benefits in the VA and taking away some costs and hidden fees that veterans may face in their health care. That's just one of the things that's plaguing the VA, and I know that's been a big issue for you, a lot of veterans here in West Virginia. Can the Veterans Administration be fixed?
Well, I told Kevin McCarthy, there's a lot of things I don't agree with, Kevin, because there's other things that we can fix. We've had an explosion of expenses during COVID. Why should we continue to just do down the same path we went down as we incurred all this debt? Why can't we look at pre-COVID and get back to normal times? Why can't we look at basically containing how much spending we're going to do in the future and basically just discipline ourselves, the same as every household does, and every business has to live within its means. For 21 years, Kenny, we have spent more money than we've taken in. You can't do that personally. You can't do that in the business you work for or any place else in society. Only in government, only here in Washington. When I was governor, we prided ourselves on balancing our budget, having surpluses, making smart investments, but also keeping a high credit rating. That's all part of the cost of doing business. You have a responsibility. And I want to make sure that the people of West Virginia understand that responsibility is making this wonderful government of ours live within its means. Pick your priorities. Be able to make adjustments that need to be made, and don't harm people. Just don't keep growing it. And I think there are some good things that we can work with and some things that I don't agree with. So I only know more about this when I start talking to them.
If we can get back to those basic principles and working on the basic form and function of government, do you feel confident about fixing the Veterans Administration? With that bill that you introduced this week about benefits, does that remain something that you think can be achieved?
Well, the veterans, I'm on the Veterans Committee. The veterans The veterans that we have the responsibility, those people who anytime you put a uniform on and you're willing to go in harm's way to protect me and my family and all the constituents we have that aren't in the military, we owe a great deal of thanks, but also of support. And we're going to continue to do that. We're not going to let our veterans down. And they're most responsible, they're reasonable and on that, but there's some needs that they have that they've been put in harm's way that we're responsible for, and we want to make sure that we take care of our veterans. I'm totally supportive of that and will continue to be.
A couple more quick questions. One, border security, which affects West Virginia because it affects the country, but it's more of an indirect impact here with the immigration. However, fentanyl crossing the border is a problem for everyone. Where are you as we look at border security today on the issue, and do you think that we're doing enough? And if we're not, what needs to be done?
Well, the border is a disaster. Anyone that tells you the border is secured is not telling you factual or being accurate whatsoever. It is a disaster. I've been there. We have got to secure our borders. We have got to go directly to China to stop the fentanyl, the source of the raw products that makes fentanyl being sent to the cartel. And we've got to get Mexico working with us and stopping these cartels from making this deadly drug. One pill can kill, and it sure has killed an awful lot of Americans. So is that their war on America right now? They're killing more individuals than any war's ever done harm to us, and we're not even basically fighting for ourselves to defend ourselves and stop this horrific drug from coming across the border when we know where the source of the material to make the drug is coming from China. We know that the cartel is producing it and manufacturing it, and we're allowing that to happen, but then trying to catch it after they made the product. I'm sorry, it's too late then. You've got to stop it before it's made. You've got to stop it before they have the product to make it. We've got to get serious about this, and Mexico has to know that we'll do whatever we can. We want to work with them. We're going to stop this. China has to know that we will not accept it, and they should be held responsible and held accountable for stopping the manufacturing of this horrific drug that's basically killing millions of people. That's their response. That's on their back too.
One last thing for you. The Russian-Ukraine conflict continues. You mentioned China. That's always a threat for expansion, especially just right off its shores. What do you think about where we are internationally with those two issues? Are we doing enough, or is there more that America could do to be involved, to exert influence, to try to reach resolutions on those fronts?
I think that America is doing everything, the United States of America is doing everything that it can and it should and it will continue to make sure that Ukraine is successful in this horrific war that they're fighting. This war of aggression from Putin, it's a Putin war. I've been there, I've spoken to Zelensky, I've been to Poland and spoken to all of them who are supporting this effort. The administration has brought the NATO alliance together, bringing the Finns in and bringing the Swedes in. Part of NATO strengthens it. When Putin thought he can weaken NATO and destroy it, it's gotten stronger. The only way it stays stronger is the leader of the free world, which is the United States of America, to make sure that we're strong enough to help them with the energy they need, with the armaments they need, and basically the skill sets that they're going to need in order to defend themselves, wherever it may be. When I was in Poland, they said, hey, Joe, if we don't stop him, Zelensky's not successful, it'll be us next. You've got all these people, Finland just coming into NATO, 800 miles of a border with Russia. All this is playing into right now. And Russia's siding up with China, trying to play the peacemaker. The only way you're going to be a peacemaker, if you really want to be part of the world order, President Xi Jinping, is have Russia go back to their border, go back to their country. Allow Ukraine to have the sovereignty and the enjoyment of their form of government and the freedoms that come with a democracy. Then you're truly part of the world order. But if you're just trying to have a facade in protecting Russia for this aggression, that is not in the realm of peacekeeping whatsoever.
Senator, with all these things going on, and now this is the last question for you, I'm going to give you some free rein here. What can we agree on in this country? What positives do you see that both sides who are so polarized can find some middle ground and help us move forward through the difficulties we face and keep this country productive and together?
Well, I think it's very clear that basically we have an inflation problem. We have a workers problem. We need more workers in America. We need people that are willing to take all the jobs that are out there. We have 8 to 10 million jobs still aren't fulfilled. We could have a worker visa program. secure our borders and let people come to our country the way our grandparents and great-grandparents came, for a better quality of life. I can assure you the millions of people trying to get into this country aren't just coming for asylum. It's the only vehicle they have. If they were coming with a worker visa and showed their true worth and the values of why they want to be here, and then be able to earn their way to citizenship because they've worked their way there, those should be things we're looking at. And every state should be held responsible and accountable and be able to have people coming to their state to provide the workforce that we're needed for the great economy. If not, we're not able to have the growth that we want in this economy of ours. So there's so much that can be done along those lines. But until the Democrats understand, you have to have border security. You can't do it unless you're secure. And until the Republicans understand, just because a person comes here and wants to work, that's not amnesty. That means they want to earn their right for the American dream or a piece of the American dream. These are things that we could come together on, I think, in a responsible way. The other thing is not spending more than we're able to support. We keep spending because everybody wants this, and this. The bottom line is, government is not your provider. Government should be your partner. There are those people in our society that depend on government because they don't have the facilities or the health to do for themselves. And I accept the responsibility and the moral responsibility that we have to help those. But there's an awful lot of people that are depending on government that could be giving something back and working and supporting the services they're going to need until they get back into gainful employment. You know, if we didn't have so many, you can't tell me there's no work. I've not been in a part of West Virginia where people says that, hey, I can hire people if they just come to work. So I know that we can fix these things, and we should be able to come to an agreement on that. That's going to help all of us and help the economy, Kenny.
Senator, as always, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are. Have a great day.
Sure thing. Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it, buddy. Take care.
Yes, sir.